There was a story of a guru who was just a little child in India, and everyone knew that he was an incarnation of God. I mean, he was living at this, what they call an avatar level. And the people said to him, they were trying to trick him, and one of the people in the tribe said, "I'll give you an orange if you can tell me where God is." And he said, "I'll give you 2 oranges if you can tell me where God is not."
An elderly spiritual teacher whose name is Sai Baba, who lives in India, comes to you in your dreams.
Right.
Who is Sai Baba? Why does he come to you, and what does he tell you?
I'm not sure why he comes to me. It just started happening several years ago. I started lecturing about this being, and this is someone who lives at God consciousness.
We were talking off camera before about this great teacher in India in Puttaparthi named Sai Baba, who has this gift of manifestation, materialization, just to move his conscious hands, and it's called the gift of fish and loaves in the New Testament, where you think about feeding people, and food just appeared. And he had in 1986, he had his 60th birthday, and 1,100,000 people came from all over the planet to see this holy man who had this great gift of higher awareness and higher consciousness.
See, even as you speak, you can see, I get very emotional. I can almost break down and cry right now. It's just, and it's not a tear of sadness. It's not a feeling that I'm, that I'm hurt in any way. It's just, it's the most blissful, peaceful, it's like...
Author and motivational speaker Dr. Wayne Dyer talks not once, but twice about holy man Sri Satya Sai Baba and how Sai Baba has entered his life. Welcome to Souljourns. These 2 vintage video interviews were recorded in Cleveland, Ohio in 1998 and 2004.
Dr. Wayne Dyer, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Wayne, I think one of the basic questions for a lot of us is simply, what is spirituality?
Spiritual is a way of being. It is a lesson that most people haven't learned, because we think of things as religious as being spiritual. To be spiritual to me means to be connected to the source from which all things emanate. And that doesn't just mean that you go around and do things in a positive, religious, nice way. It means that you are spiritually connected on a vibrational level. So that if you look at the source from which all things come, and if you had magical binoculars that you could just sort of tune into and see what it looks like and what it feels like and what it sounds like. What it sounds like this. It says, this source says, "I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me." What it looks like love, it looks like kindness, and mostly it excludes no one and no thing. And so when you have an organization or a thought that excludes some and includes others, which is what almost all organized religion does, it really deviates from the source energy that I'm speaking about here, because source energy and spiritual are the same. So that every thought that we have that says, I get it but you don't, I'm better than you are, I'm number 1 and you're number 2, you live on that side of the river, I live on this side of the river, therefore I am entitled to something and you're not. Anything that excludes is non-spiritual. So all we have to do is think, one of the great teachers in India many, many years ago, around the time of Christ, even before, was a man named Patanjali. And he said these words about spirituality. He said, "When you are steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm directed toward yourself or others, all living creatures will cease to feel fear in your presence." So all you have to do is be steadfast. That's what the great spiritual masters all gave us. It's like when people ask me, well, are you a spiritual man? I say, I fluctuate. There are times when I just am the most giving and loving and creative and kind and focused on God, a human being as I can be. But there are other times when I lose it. There are times when I get frustrated. There are times when I possibly think of myself as, having accomplished so many things, so my ego gets in the way and so on. But when you're steadfast and you never have thoughts that separate yourself from others, and when you never exclude anyone, and when you are no longer having thoughts of harm of any kind, and that means thoughts of judgment directed towards yourself or others, then all living creatures, and that's why St. Francis, for example, would have living creatures would no longer feel anger or hatred in his presence.
Can you one day get to the level where you don't fluctuate any longer?
Even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater things. I mean, that's just right out of the scriptures that all of us have within us, because there's not a human being on this planet who isn't connected to Source. The fact that, you know, when you go to bed tonight and you look at your fingernails, you know that tomorrow morning they're going to be just a little bit longer than they were the night before. But you don't go to bed and say, you know, I got to really work on these fingernails. I got to grow them tonight, and I got to beat my heart, and I got to grow my hair, and I've got to digest my food. There's a force, there's a source in the universe that is doing all of this for you, and all of us came from that source. And then we forgot. We forgot, and we took on these egos, and these egos say that who I am is what I have and what I do and what other people think of me, and who I am is separate and better than other people and separate from God. All you have to do, you see, Course in Miracles puts it this way. It says that being spiritual is not about learning new things. It's about remembering. So it goes like this: the memory of God comes to the quiet mind. It cannot come where there is conflict. A mind at war with itself remembers not eternal gentleness. What you remember is who you are, for you must be as God created you. And then it says, be done with this madness and return to the quiet remembrance of God. It's just about remembering. It's about going back to where you came from, living from that perspective, imagining what that source is like, seeing it as a vibration and energy, and reaching for thoughts that vibrate more in harmony with that energy. That's all it takes.
Course in Miracles speaks of something that's very akin to equanimity. What is equanimity, and is it attainable?
Yes, it is. Equanimity is nothing more than being at one with God. It is what... I was down in Australia just interviewing me, and a woman asked me, she said, what is your mission? And I said, without even realizing what I said, my mission is God realization. And she said, what do you mean by that? I said, that's where every thought that I have is on an equal level with the source that I came from. You see, there's a link between ourselves and this source. The problem is that the link is corroded. The link is dirty. It's got all kinds of ego identifiers in the way of it. All we have to do is figure out a way to cleanse that link. And the more you shed these layers of ego, that I am better than everybody else, I am what I do, I am my reputation, I am what others think of me, I am separate from everybody else. Once we get rid of all of these ego identifiers and remove them, what we do is we get to that place where we see God, we see love, we see peace in everything and everyone that we encounter. That's all it takes. That's what equanimity is.
Wayne, can you tell me the basic difference, if there is any, between being a spiritual person and being a religious person?
Well, the major difference between spirituality and religion is that religion is something that divides us, and spirituality is something that unites us. And anything that divides us weakens us. If I were to do a muscle test with you right now, ask you to think about a thought that excludes some and includes others. Just think of that thought, that I'm a man and you are a woman, or I am anything that divides me from you. And I do a muscle test, and I just put your arm down. You would find that when you think thoughts that divide us, you get weaker. And then if I were to ask you to just think of a thought that unites us, just think of yourself like the Native Americans used to say, that no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves.
Aren't we raised to believe that being religious has merit?
Yeah, we're raised, but we're also raised to believe that we are what we do, and we are what we have, and we are what other people think of us. And the fact is that all of us know that we're just in temporary bodies, that these bodies are on their way to someplace else. But we're raised to believe that. We're also raised to believe that we're sitting here still, when in fact we're orbiting around the sun, we're turning on our axis, and we're hurling through space at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. But yet we're taught all of these things, and to trust your senses and to trust what other people tell us. But there's a place within us, a deep, peaceful, loving, knowing place that know that who I am is not a human being here having a spiritual experience. It's the reverse, that who I really am is a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. That's who I am, and that's where you have to live.
An elderly spiritual teacher whose name is Sai Baba, who lives in India, comes to you in your dreams.
Right.
Who is Sai Baba? Why does he come to you, and what does he tell you?
I'm not sure why he comes to me. It just started happening several years ago. I started lecturing about this being, and this is someone who lives at God consciousness, who has what is said of Jesus, the gift of fish and loaves. So that the ability to manifest, for example, all of us have the ability to manifest something, but usually there's a time line between what we think about and what we create. Deepak Chopra and I put together a series of tapes one time, and we talked about the 4 ways to get strawberry ice cream. So the lowest way to get strawberry ice cream is to have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. And then you get up and go to the store and you go get your strawberry ice cream. And you had a thought, an invisible thing, and you got on your bicycle, you walked and you came back, and that's a miracle. But it's the second way to get strawberry ice cream is to have a thought and stay right where you are and tell your children to go get it. Okay, so that's like you're sitting there and they go get it for you. So that's the second way. The third way is to have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream. And somebody walks by and says to you, excuse me, is this your strawberry ice cream? And when that happens, we call this synchronicity, and isn't that it is like this collaboration with fate? Isn't this amazing thing? I was just thinking about strawberry ice cream, and everybody's had that experience. But the highest way to strawberry ice cream is to have a thought, gee, I'd really like to have some strawberry ice cream, and then you manifest it. And Sai Baba lives at that level of consciousness where there's no delay between a thought. It's called the gift of fish and loaves, the ability to be able to manifest from your thoughts, because you're living at such a level, such a high vibrational level, that your thoughts and what you are thinking about all become one, that everything is one, and he lived in that oneness.
I don't have too many dreams that I remember in detail. You seem to remember these involving Sai Baba. What do they mean for you? Can you remember if they're uplifting, if they guide you, if they offer advice, or is it something else?
See, even as you speak, you can see I get very emotional. I can almost break down and cry right now. It's just, and it's not a tear of sadness. It's not a feeling that I'm, that I'm hurt in any way. It's just, it's the most blissful, peaceful. It's like, you know what it feels like to stand under a warm shower when you've been outside in the cold? It's like having a warm shower running inside of you. It's like kundalini. It's an energy that moves up and down your spine and gives you that goose flesh. Only it's internal goose flesh. It's just bliss. It's just that's what it is, and that's how I feel. You know?
I know people who would look at you and hear your words and be very human, very jealous of what you have and they don't have. Why don't so many people have access to this quality that you do?
Everybody has access to it. They just they believe that they don't. It's like your question itself has resistance built into it. The idea is that if you believe that you don't have something, then you don't have it, and it's like you've created resistance. If you use terms like the worst case scenario, then you'll create it. If you believe that things can't be, then you become what you think about. As a man thinketh, so is he. It's basic, simple metaphysics 101. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Forgive me for asking so many questions about one spiritual teacher. What is it that you suppose Sai Baba wants of your life? You're 65? 64.
Will you still want me? Will you still love me when I'm 64?
So what does he want of you?
I used to hear that song when I was in my 20s and think, well, nobody lives that long anyway, so why would they even sing that?
Joke's on you.
Right, I honestly, the honest answer to that is I just don't know.
This might be a good preparation interview in that I'm aware of your intentions, your desire. I'm not sure if you're going to actually follow through with it. To see Sai Baba one day, I'd be curious to swap notes with you later to find out how different he may be, or undifferent, from your dream reality to meeting him in the flesh.
There's no difference. I already know that. It's not necessary for me to meet him. I'll meet him if it's designed to be that way, and basically if he wants that. And if he does, I won't be able to stop it. And if he doesn't, I won't be able to get there. So I'm not attached to it at all. Honestly, I'm not. I mean, I don't fight it. I don't resist. I don't have any illusion that if he were walking in this room that it would be any different than what I experience with him now, because I already feel his presence in this room right now. It's just that strong. It's just I have a very, very strong internal knowing about my connection to Source. I believe that Sai Baba is someone who lives at this level of God consciousness. In David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, he speaks about a handful of people who live at this God-realized level consistently. That is, they are steadfast in their abstention of thoughts. They don't exclude anyone, and they include all. And he's one of those beings that calibrates at that exceptionally high spiritual level that is commensurate with Source. It's Source energy. He lives at Source energy. He is God. We are all pieces of God, and he is there all the time.
I'm tempted to ask you another 10 questions, but I know you're a busy man and you're on your way here, so let me just put the onus on your shoulders. What last element can you talk about from your heart, from your mind, from your travels, from your discoveries that could be useful to me, to anybody seeing this?
Well, I think the essence of why I'm here to teach, I mean, this book that I have just written, The Power of Intention, is something that I call automatic writing. It's when you get your ego out of the way, and when you just allow rather than have resistance, and connect yourself to a place where you just absolutely have total knowing. And of course, it's as if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen. You could never experience doubt or fear. Again, it just wouldn't be. If you know that you have a senior partner and that you stay connected to that, then anything that you put your attention on, one of the quotes I have from Swami Paramananda in there is that when you reach God realization, nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. So all you have to do is live at the level that I'm speaking about, and you don't have to go around practicing or working on it. You just have to reach for higher and higher vibrational energy at any moment, which means stay connected. Always stay connected to Source. One of the great questions to ask yourself is, would God have this thought? And then remind yourself that you are God. You are a piece of God.
For most everybody I know, most of the present company included, fear is the greatest obstacle in life. I sense somehow it's not for you.
I just don't live there in fear, and not any longer. I did at times in my life, but I just don't go there.
Learning to co-create your world, your way, the power of intention. Your 20th book?
25th.
25th book. Must be thousands of books written about spirituality, generally and specifically. I know there are hundreds of books written about Sai Baba. Think the day may ever come when you write about Sai Baba?
I think I do already. I just don't call it that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Dr. Wayne Dyer, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted. God bless you. Thank you.
Remember? 4 years old. It was 1976. No, it was 1976.
And you're from Detroit, right?
From Detroit.
Okay.
I was coming through with Erroneous Zones, and Fred and I did the show then, and I think I've done it 30 or 40
times. Well, I think I've been here almost from day one when the Morning Exchange was on, watching you guys. So it's
like
old family.
And,
have a seat right over there, if you will. Okay, Jane.
To Channel 25.
Well, he's going to Detroit.
And then from there, now I'm doing that Detroit too. I got to speak in Detroit tomorrow. I'm driving I'm going to 25 from here.
Wayne, one question I've been wanting to ask you for a long time is, I hear you more than ever now, not that you do it frequently, but more than ever talking about God. I don't recall that being part of your discussions, of your talks, of your lectures in years gone by. You must be more comfortable with that.
Well, I don't think I was there at that time. Carl Jung said that when we become adults, we go through 4 stages, just like children go through developmental stages from being toddlers to becoming adolescents. That when you reach adulthood, you don't just stop. And he said he used archetypes, and he said the 4 stages of adulthood are the athlete, which he said it wasn't a put down for athletes or athletics, it was just the time in our adult life when our primary emphasis is on our body, what it can do, what it looks like, how beautiful it is, how strong it is. He said then you move to what he called the warrior, which is the age of the ego, the time when you go out into the world to do what warriors do, which is to defeat and to collect and to get as much booty as you possibly can, and so on. And you determine how effective you are as a person on the basis of how you compare and stack up to other people. So you always want to do well against others. Then he said you become the statesman or the stateswoman, which is when you stop thinking about your own quotas and what's in it for me, and you finally begin to say, what are your quotas and how may I serve? Becomes much more of a mantra than what am I going to get. And ultimately we move to what he called the highest stage, which is the stage of the spirit. When we realize that what Pierre Teilhard of Chardin said, that you're not a human being having a spiritual experience, it's the other way around. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And when I was writing earlier and speaking earlier in my career, what you referred to, I think I was an athlete writing for athletes. And then I became a warrior writing for warriors and telling people how to be better warriors. And then I became a statesman, more of a statesman, where the primary emphasis of my life was on serving. And I found, that whole idea, what Thoreau said, that if you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It'll chase you rather than you chasing it. Until ultimately you begin to realize that this is not your home, that you're not this body. This is just a garage where you park your soul. You're not what you witness, you are the witness. You're not what you see or what you observe, you're the observer. You're that which is internal and also eternal. And that's now, I just don't see myself. That's just an old man in there renting my face. That's not me. I'm not that face. I'm not this body. I'm that which is in there looking out.
It's one thing to be a person who's capable of finding the courage to speak this way. It's another thing to be a person who's comfortable speaking this way. I would put you in that latter category now.
Yeah.
When did the comfort factor kick in?
You know, it's just sort of an evolutional kind of thing. I've had some very powerful experiences in my life, in my own relationships. We're talking about the falls of our lives, the struggles that we go through. I remember a time in my marriage when my wife and I were talking about splitting up and so on, and I was going through great pain about that, and that softened me. It made me a stronger person. It made me a better person.
Is there ever a time for anybody when what appears to be adversity is truly adversity, or is it not, in fact, the building blocks of a blessing?
Well, I think this is a perfect universe. I don't think there are any mistakes in this universe, any whatsoever. I think that the same...
So war, homicide,
all of those things,
rape and robbery.
Yeah, they're great. They're lessons that are very difficult for us to rationalize, and there's certainly things... You know, when Das was asked that question about hunger, he said, when someone said, "You mean to tell me that this starvation in the world is, I think, part of God's plan?" And he said, "Starvation in the world is in the world," he said, but so is your desire to end. And go with your desire to end it and work on that, rather than being consumed with and angry about and saying that these things shouldn't be happening, recognizing that they are. And I think the wars that we've gone through, the Holocausts that we've gone through, the people who suffered so dramatically, taught us all, have great lessons for all of us to teach. And if you believe, of course, that you only get one life and you just come in and then you're gone, I believe that what Lao Tzu said, that is real, which never changes. There's an eternal part to all of us. There's a soul in there, and it can come back again and again and again.
You talk a lot in your lectures and in your books about consciousness, true consciousness, being at one with yourself. For what I would gather, many people who think they understand that, but might not understand the way you mean it. How would you better define that?
Well, I think there are levels of consciousness. There's what I call ordinary human consciousness, or ordinary human awareness. And there's something that in the East is called Siddhi consciousness, or Christ consciousness in the West. Ordinary human consciousness is a consciousness in which I identify who I am on the basis of what I'm doing, what I accomplish, how much I collect, who I'm better than, and so on. A key word there is separation. That is, there's you and there's me, and where you stop and where I start is what divides us, what separates us. Then there's another kind of consciousness, which is one in which says, like the Native Americans used to say, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. There's an awareness that there's a oneness, that we are all connected, that on a round planet there's no choosing up sides, that all of us are connected in some way that's perhaps invisible, that we can't see with our eyes or our senses, but we can feel with our hearts. And when your truth, I don't mean your truth about what you write down, but I mean your truth about what you live, is something that goes beyond your own personality and your own physicalness. You reach this level of Siddhi consciousness. And it is here where in the New Testament it says through St. John, quoting Jesus, that even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater things.
But how can a person truly practice consciousness of spirit, if that's what you mean?
Yeah, consciousness of spirit is to treat everyone out there as if they are connected to you rather than as if they're separate from you. Your separation from each other, you begin to eliminate. Your separation from the planet, that you're not on this planet to push it around. That are connected to everything that, if God is that which is everywhere at once, not a person but a presence that is in all things, that means there's no place that God is not. And if there's no place that God is not, then God is in you, and also in all that you would like to attract into your life. And so consciousness is realigning your inner attention with this awareness that you are connected to everything. There was a story of a guru who was just a little child in India, and everyone knew that he was an incarnation of God. I mean, he was living at this, what they call an avatar level. And the people said to him, they were trying to trick him, and one of the people in the tribe said, "I'll give you an orange if you can tell me where God is." And he said, "I'll give you 2 oranges if you can tell me where God is not." There is no place that God is not. Once you know that, you are connected to God. We were talking off camera before about this great teacher in India, in Puttaparthi, named Sai Baba, who has this gift of manifestation, materialization, just to move his hands. And it's called the gift of fish and loaves in the New Testament, where you think about feeding people and food just appeared. And he had in 1986, he had his 60th birthday, and 1,100,000 people came from all over the planet to see this holy man who had this great gift of higher awareness and higher consciousness. And one of the reporters from one of the magazines thought that they would trap him They asked him the question in front of all these people who he had granted an audience to, "Are you God?" And Sai Baba looked at him and said, "Yes, I am. And so are you." He said, "The difference between you and I is that I know it, and you don't."
Do you know it about yourself?
Absolutely.
When did you first realize this?
I don't know exactly when it was, but it was at a very low time in my life.
Did it humble you or did it elevate you?
It humbled me and then elevated me. You have to have that fall in order to raise yourself to a high level.
Run the risk, you think in your mind, of arrogance with anybody watching such an outlandish statement, or do you know in your heart that those who have open ears and open eyes will see that you're coming from what you call your center of truth?
Well, I think one of my teachers was Abraham Maslow. I was blessed to know him in lifetime. And he said in order to reach these higher levels of awareness, you have to be independent of the good opinion of other people. And if that's perceived as arrogance or ignorance, it's okay. I mean, I've been out in public, I've grown up in public over the last 25 or 30 years and been on all the different media shows and written about it and had reported on. And I found I just can't do it on the basis of what other people think. In this last book that I wrote, The Wisdom of the Ages, I profiled 60 people who were great teachers, from Buddha and Jesus and Lao Tzu to Omar Khayyam and Keats and Shelley and Yeats and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa, 60 of the greatest leaders, philosophers of all time. And one of the things about all of them is that they didn't do what they did on the basis of what other people out there might think. They were living, they were detached from outcome. That's what Maslow, these people were detached from outcome. That is, they weren't doing what they were doing because it was going to bring them a reward or because people were going to buy books or because they were going to make a lot of money. They're saying, doing what they did because they felt it in their heart. And that's where I come from.
When you feel something in your heart today, let's say it's a coincidence that you know is more than that, it's synchronicity. Let's say it's something that is a divine relation, sort of the universe winking at you. Do you take it as that literally, or do you reserve in your mind the element of doubt that maybe this is what I want to believe it is, but I don't really know yet for sure?
I've let go of the doubt. I let go of that. William Blake said, if sun and moon should ever doubt, they would immediately go out.
On your worst day, when you're in the greatest depression, moments of anguish, or physical pain, or fatigue, you still don't have that doubt.
The doubt is gone. It's the difference between what you believe and what you know. See, there's a difference between knowing about God and knowing God. Knowing about God is what the tribe and everybody in your immediate sphere has told you what God is. Whether it's from the books or whether it's from my experience or the testimony of other people. Knowing God is making conscious contact. It's like asking me if you believe you can ride a bicycle or if you know you can ride a bicycle. If I've never been on a bicycle, but I've seen other people do it, I might believe I can do it. But I know I can do it until I get on, fumble about, fall down a few times, and then go off. And swimming and anything else that you do in life. Conscious contact. The difference between knowing God and knowing about God is conscious contact. I've made conscious contact.
To the seeker or the cynic or the doubter watching this program, who's not where you are today, and who could easily brush you off as being capitalizing on your commercial fame, would you be able to tell that person that you would be right where you are now if you never got into the public exposure through your books and lectures?
No, I don't know. I don't. It's like speculating about what it would be like to live on another planet. I mean, everything that has ever happened up until this moment it can be undone. It's like you can't be undone, but if you're bitten by a snake.
I guess what I'm asking is, if this were to end today for whatever reason, you just had a change of heart and didn't want to appear before the public tomorrow, how much of an impact or an effect does it have on your spiritual life?
Yeah, I don't think it would change it at all. It doesn't. I don't really do it for anybody else out there. I do it because in my heart I'm doing what I'm being directed to do. I go where I'm sent.
The message of the power of mention, the message of my talk here today, the message that I'd like to leave you with when I get in that car and head towards the airport is that you want to be able to be this. Self-realization means that we have been consciously connected back with our source of being. That's really all it is.
I was in a room one time in Arizona